Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
So when I was working on Selena, the series for Netflix, to play the role of Abraham Quintanilla, I put on a specific amount of weight, which I was fine doing, but also realizing it could be difficult to get that weight off. I got back into my physical regimen with James Leja, but I was still having trouble with just those last amounts. And that's when I got to meet Arturo from Laredo Medical Weight Loss Clinic. And just the products that he gave me kind of put me over the edge. I feel great about myself.
We're back at you in Gloves Off, and today I got a great guest, a peace officer that is going for, tell us a little bit something about what's happening in her life, and she's been a great peace officer here in Laredo and Webb County. Her name's Tina Guerra. How are we doing today?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation, for being here, letting me use your podcast as a platform. Thank you.
No, thank you. Number one, I thank you for standing up, and I'm going to tell you why. Every time somebody puts their name on the list, they want to be going to public office, they're giving a part of themselves to the community. And everybody has to be respected for that nature. You know, you can't just say, oh, that's not, no. Everybody, because it takes guts and it's an admirable cause to serve your community. So tell me, how did this decision come of age? And let's find out a little bit about it.
Well, for the past 15 years, I've been in law enforcement, and I've been really blessed to work with some really great people, really great elected officials. And I've helped on numerous campaigns. And when this seat for Constable's Office of Precinct 4 became available, there was going to be an opening. I said, well, why not me? You know, so with the support of my family, especially my two girls, they said, you know what, Mom, you've helped on a lot of other campaigns. You know, why don't you help yourself? You know, why don't you put yourself out there? And like you said, yes, it does take a lot to throw your name in the hat. You know, I think everybody at one time or another has said, you know, if I was the boss, if I was in charge, this is what I would do. This is how I can make it better. And that's what I'm doing.
Absolutely. You know that those armchair quarterbacks or Monday morning quarterbacks they exist all over the place. And it's very hard when you're doing a job for just a person, let's say a clerk, and there's just one person in front of you doing just one job for that. You have to give it all. Okay.
You know.
Now, when you're an elected official, you know what I'm saying. You're giving it everything for the whole community, and that's a lot because you have all the different opinions that come of age.
You know, you're absolutely right. You know, it's if you come back to customer service, if you come back to any type of business, if you're dealing with one person, with your one boss, you know, you only answer to certain supervisors, but as an elected official, you answer to the community. So and I really look forward to doing that. In this past 15 years that I've been out there, not only in community policing, but also policing myself, you know, out there on patrol. I'm currently the first line supervisor for Constable's Office Precinct 3. I'm the sergeant, and I work with a great bunch of guys who are very ethical, professional, and you know, it's an honor to be working with them.
Yeah, absolutely. But let's go back. Let's go back when you were first on patrol by yourself. What did you think? What were you thinking then? What were you doing then? What were you thinking about? The first time you went by yourself?
The first time I went by myself, I thought, you know, you're always, well, at least for myself, or you're always looking for, you know, what scenario is going to happen. I was constantly playing, you know, what if happens. And, you know, when I first went on patrol 15 years ago with the Webb County Sheriff's Department, my first call was to a deceased person. And that was something that, wow, you know, that's your first call. So it was an eye-opener, and it was just an opening to my patrol career, and I never wanted to go back. You know, I started off at the county clerk's office, where I was the chief deputy there. I had the opportunity to go to the Reserve Academy under Constable Rudy Rodriguez, and that was a whole different experience. And when I became a reserve peace officer, as the chief deputy, I didn't want to be in the office. I wanted to be out on patrol. I wanted to be there with the community, trying to see how I could help, learn as much as I could. And I had an opportunity then to patrol with the sheriff's department, and it was a great experience.
Yes. Well, going back with that experience, what other lessons would you say, because that's a very powerful lesson, you know, go to your first case, I would say that way, and the first thing you see is somebody that's deceased. That would be an impact. What did you say then how would you say that affected you or changed you? What did it encourage you to continue? What happened? That's very powerful.
It encouraged me to continue, and it just gave me a whole new respect for county policing. At the time when we got the call, I was partnered up with another deputy, and it was very impactful. And he looked at me, he said, "Welcome to your first call," you know. But nobody prepares you emotionally or, you know, mentally how to deal with that. You know, during the academy, you know, you're taught, you know, the basics, the do's and the don'ts, what the procedure is, and of course you follow policy and procedure once you get to the department. But to get home and to decompress and to actually process that, and then continue to the next call and continue to the next call. Again, you know, if it wasn't for the deputies that I worked with, you know, who were very supportive and very just willing to teach me everything that they knew, and, you know, how to deal with things, how to decompress and just survive. County policing is completely different from city. You know, city you have backup, you know, that's minutes away. County's different. You have calls that are, you know, it sometimes takes 20 minutes for your backup to get there, so you're on your own. And but it's something that I love to do, and I continue to do it today. But it was how I started in policing. When I was at the county clerks, I was first the criminal coordinator. And, you know, you have a docket of 200, 300 plus cases. And every time I would read these complaints for misdemeanors, I would always think, like, how does this happen? Like, you know, so I always wanted to know more. So that's how I got interested in going into law enforcement. I wanted to see, how did this end up here? How did it end up in the court? You know, reading the reports and looking at the details of everything. I wanted to be involved in that. So that's how I became interested in law enforcement.
Yeah, taking that point, because you said an interesting thing about that you saw all these cases and all these misdemeanors. What were the most common misdemeanors that are going on that you can say, you know what, we have a problem here?
A lot of them were possession cases at the time. We're talking back in 2003, 2004. So a lot of them were possessions, DWIs. So of course, you know, coming out of the policing aspect, you want to address, you have to be alert, know what to look for. But most importantly, you want to be able to educate the public on what they should be doing, how can they be helping police, and in return, how can police be helping them. So, you know, you want to deter that. You want to be proactive instead of reactive.
Do you think a lot of the agencies and departments are proactive or reactive?
I think that for the most part, when you're on patrol, you're dispatched to calls. You know, so you're reactive. You're reactive at that point. But, you know, again, you know, at the sheriff's department, I had a wonderful opportunity through the sheriff's department to work with different community projects. You know, Share a Bear for, you know, domestic violence. You know, crime victims units. We had several programs that are still active today. You know, the Share a Bear program started with Liz Cardenas. She was the one who initiated the program. We were blessed just to help her run with it, and it's still there today. When I first started there, also with Maru de la Paz, Right Against Crime. It's in support of Laredo Crime Stoppers, where they had a motorcycle run. I believe that year the registration was like over 300 motorcycle riders who were out to support Laredo Crime Stoppers and the Right Against Crime. So those are definitely, proactive programs. But, patrol and community affairs work hand in hand. So, and that's the balance between community and policing. And that's something that I'm looking forward to bringing to Precinct 4. The deputies that are there right now are very much community oriented. I know because I was there for 8 years. We started several programs and they're great. We just need to be consistent with the programs that are in place right now. That are in place, yes.
I remember, I lived in Baltimore, Maryland, lived in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was in Dallas, and in fact, I lived in various places, even outside the United States. And I remember in the eastern parts, and Kentucky's not eastern, if you want to put it that way, right? But you had a lot of that you don't see here, and I get it. And you had a lot of police officers, what they used to call walking the beat. You used to have them walk, and 1, 2 guys would be walking down the street, or one guy would take this block, you'd take the other block, and meet you at the other end. And there was a lot of they knew who you were. They knew the kids that were in the neighborhoods. They knew the people that lived there. It was a lot more of a community-oriented thing. I don't see that here in Laredo. I don't see that with anybody. And how can I say? I see they're trying to do something. And number one, we live in Laredo, which is half of the year is 100 plus degrees. You know what I'm saying? So walking the beat's a little bit different. But I think we need that type of involvement for the community and the police to understand each other. ¿Me entiendes?
I'm going to tell you that at Precinct 4, yes, in the summer, I'm pretty sure a lot of the community members will, who frequented North Central Park or even the Bartlett Park, would understand and appreciate that we did do that. We weren't walking the beat, but we had a golf cart, that we would patrol the parks, and we had that contact with the community, which was great. A lot of the times they would come and say, hey, it's, something happened in the park, we
need help.
We need help. And as a matter of fact, with Precinct 4, in the golf cart duty at the North Central Park, if you recall, there was a situation where there was somebody who was groping some females. The constable's office worked hand in hand with the Laredo Police Department to apprehend that individual, and it was successful. So Precinct 4 does do that.
We've had problems with that in the past, and I don't know if you remember, about 16 years ago, a little bit more or less, in 2008, more or less, around that time frame, there was a rapist here from Northside rapist. He never got caught. Never got caught. There was 27 rapes. Never got caught. I've always been, for the longest time we've had women's self-defense seminars for free for women, and we used to hold those classes every other Sunday, the second and fourth Sunday of the month, and we would always have them free of charge. And for those that used to come, sometimes it would be 30, sometimes it would be 10, whoever, we taught them, because that is part of what we have to do, is educate the public and the community that we live in. Because number one, I'm from Laredo. I love Laredo. I came back to Laredo. And when you see those problems like that, he was never caught. Probably he was caught for something else and doing time, and nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Hopefully that's what it is. And but what happens is we need more involvement and more awareness from the women as well, and we have to take those things seriously. And that's something that is not being taken seriously. There's a lot of stalking going on. I mean, I get calls all the time. I get calls for women, do you teach privates? Because I don't want my boyfriend to find out that I'm going to class. I don't want my husband to find out that I'm going there. Me golpeó, ¿qué hacemos? Sometimes I just direct them straight to the district attorney for them to take care of it, because there seems to be, I hate to downgrade somebody, but there seems to be a blockage at the police departments. And that blockage has ended up with a bunch of events that have turned bad, and then people posting, that's the guy that we complained about, and the police never did that over and over, and they come out with, oh, we never got the complaint. They're not taking it seriously. And to me, that is a,
You know,
you know what I'm saying?
I
There's-
understand
And I
what
know
you're saying.
because I filed one on somebody that's close to the family of mine, and they didn't do anything. And there was a lot of people, and this is an individual stating that he was going to rape people. And so I look back at that, and I'm saying that, you know, they're failing in that essence. You know, they get an F plus.
well, I'm sorry that you had that encounter, and it's unfortunate if you know. But I understand what you're saying. But I know that for the police officers and the deputies that I've worked with, I know that they do 100%. They give 100%.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the investigator, there's something there
it could be that it didn't meet the elements of the crime. It could be that there was a break.
a family member that was involved. You never know.
You never know. I mean, it could be that the complainant rescinded their complaint and they didn't want to push forward through. So there's a lot of different things, a lot of different aspects that you have to look at when something doesn't get pushed forward. But, going back to the constable's office, I know that whenever we would receive information, if it wasn't our jurisdiction, we would definitely pass it on to the proper agency, the Laredo Police Department, the Webb County Sheriff's Department. It's working closely with other agencies to make sure that the complaint that came in is addressed by the proper agency.
If a complaint comes in with a house or with a resident that's in your all's jurisdiction, period, what will you all do? Let's say that happens.
So
Do you all take care of it?
what the constable's office does, I can tell you that there is not an investigative unit in that department. There is not a narcotics unit in that department. There's not a traffic department like the Laredo Police Department has.
Everybody kind of just does it.
Everybody pitches in. Of course, as constables, we're not dispatched to the calls, but we are more than likely, 95% of the time, the first ones there. Because we're out in the streets, we're out serving papers, we're in the community, so we're flagged down by somebody, we get their information, we get everything that we need to know, and we'll pass it on to the agency that has jurisdiction. Within the city, of course, it's the Laredo Police Department. If it's something that happened at TAMU, we forward it to the TAMU Police Department. If it's something that happened at Laredo College, we forward it to them. If it's something that happened at UISD, we'll pass it on to the police department. The constable's office is an extension of law enforcement. Our priority is the justice of the peace court, being court bailiff, court security, and serving those documents. But make no mistake, we are Texas peace officers. We do have powers of arrest. We do have the authority to, issue warrants and serve those documents, and we work closely with other agencies. I know that we work with the Attorney General's office. We serve protective orders, peace bonds, going back to the stalking that you were talking about. We do all of those things. But again, we don't have the unit that's equipped to make sure that if we were to take on a case, that we could see it to its extent, to its fullest.
Right. And now, how do you see, because you're running for this, how do you say, you know what, this is what I would like to do better what it is? This is through my experiences, I think we need this to happen here. What kind of?
Just last night, I was on patrol. I have the evening shift, and I heard that there was an accident on 83 North by Vaquero Pit Stop, Forza, that area. If you're familiar with it, those of you who travel to Kickapoo are very familiar with the increase of the commercial traffic in that area. The speed limit is 60 miles per hour. 60 miles per hour. But I firmly believe that we need to have more patrolling in those areas to circumvent any type of accident. There's a lot of vehicles that are coming and going, employees that are coming out of these businesses, and at 60 miles an hour with an 18-wheeler, that's pretty much, it's going to take a while for that tractor trailer to stop. When I was at Precinct 4, we did have an opportunity to hold a town hall meeting. We brought the local businesses together, the trucking companies in that area, just talk about how could we expand the highway. It was very well attended by TxDOT, the county commissioners, county engineers, and they came together and they had a plan, and they put the plan in place to expand and to reduce speed. So those are things that we need to do. We need to be patrolling out there to deter. We need to be out there to make sure that people and enforce the speed limit, because it's very important.
Yeah, and the problem is that we have nothing, how can I put it? Accidents are gonna happen, number one. It can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Happen to anybody.
And there's things that mechanically, we're a lot of people don't take care of their vehicles, and that's something that needs to be enforced. And what happens is something goes wrong, all of a sudden, bingo, now you're in the middle of an accident because something did happen to your car. Let's just take it that route. Influences and everything else is also another thing. But what happens is a lot of the 18-wheelers that you say, there's signs for them not to enter certain areas, and they're still going through those areas. It's not being enforced, not by anybody. And if they get a ticket, to them it's nothing, because those companies are going to pay whatever it is or enroll it into something else. And you see these 18-wheelers running around in neighborhoods they're not supposed to be in.
Well, you know, for anybody who has a CDL license, you know, getting a citation is frowned upon. You know, their license can be revoked.
Sure.
So, I mean, they do need to take more precaution. But as the constable's office, how can we help that? How can we help? So, as a matter of fact, I was just speaking to a constituent the other day, and his concern was that, you know, why don't people have liability insurance? You know, there's a lot of people who don't have insurance. Okay, well, let's look at that. How, the constable's office, how can we enforce that? How can we promote that? We have events all the time, and I'm all for community policing and attending community events, but our job when we're at those events is to educate. So let's talk about, you know, what drivers have to do to make sure that they're insured, that their vehicles are registered properly, that their paper tags are valid and not fictitious, and let them know what it would cost them, you know, as far as traffic fines and court fees should they get a traffic stop. So let's promote and let's look at that, and we should do that quarterly, you know, because it's a big issue. And I loved speaking with that constituent, because at that moment when I was talking to him, and I said, well, yeah, that is something that we can do. That is something that we can educate the people on, and it's all about public safety. That's what it's about.
When you all serve out papers, I know that sometimes you're serving out subpoenas, warrants, what have you. Mm-hmm. That's when the nitty-gritty starts on the sense of something can go wrong, somebody, you know, I look at it this way, there's like 95% of the people here in the United States respect the law and respect the badge, and they're not going to try to, they're going to comply. There's a 5% that doesn't care what it is. Mm-hmm. And you never know when you're playing that Russian roulette, and you get one of those that's in there. And all of a sudden you get to a place that they say, well, that's good enough. So do you all have the sufficient training for that, or is it something that you think that, you know what, we need more of? Because what I see in budgets, and believe me, I used to teach a lot of different police officers, not only outside of Laredo, I never taught any from here, for my various reasons. But I used to teach a lot of SWAT in Scottsdale, mm-hmm. Arizona, and with Sheriff Baca in California, and other areas, Cook County, and Force French police, and mm-hmm. Brazilian police, and other areas, other agencies, right? And there's a difference of them wanting to learn more about protecting themselves and others. And here it seems to me that that's the first thing that goes in a budget. They rather buy that $200 flashlight taser or something to that effect and forget the person from learning how to defend themselves. So they bring in something that it's not as valuable for them and more impeding their safety than anything else. And then you start, I look at it this way, because, you know, there's a lot of, on how you're dressed, it's actually impeding your movement for defending yourself. And I look at it that way. And so you end up getting into the situations that happen. And what would you do in that sense? Do you want your officers to be able to defend themselves? I'm not doing this, I'm not looking for any job, please. I wouldn't do it. Not here in Laredo, and I got my reasons. Well,
let me tell you, yes, most definitely. The officers need to be trained. I'm going on my second year at Precinct 3, and I was really, really excited to work with Constable Adrian Cortez and Chief Luis Tinajero, and with Deputy Jose Pepe Ramirez. They brought in a tactical training with Craig Sawyer. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but Craig Sawyer came down, Navy SEAL, a sniper, and offered a training here locally. And it was very well attended, and we had an opportunity, the department had an opportunity to get some tactical training, not only during the day, but at night, night tactical training, because crime happens at all hours of the day. So we were able to get that training, and we worked closely with Craig Sawyer on Operation Child Safe, and it was wonderful to see a constable's office going above, taking the initiative to offer this training, taking the initiative to work these operations. Operation Child Safe, we worked closely with the district attorney's office, we worked closely with other law enforcement agencies, and we were successful in apprehending 3 child predators. So in the Quad City area, that's just 30 minutes away from here. So yes, as Constable of Precinct 4, I definitely want to work with bringing some tactical training, not because we're SWAT, because SWAT, everybody knows, to be a SWAT member, you have to train daily as a unit. You have to work cohesively as a unit, and that's your main focus. It can't be your SWAT today, patrol tomorrow, serving papers the next day, because that's not your focus. But tactical training, yes, most definitely, we need to be prepared.
And that's great about the stuff with catching child predators and stuff. So we have to, and everybody has to put that part, especially here in Laredo. I mean, kids are snatched up all over and all the time, and we live right on the border, and they can be taken straight off, or they can be just. And that's something that not that I fear, but I sense that we have to build that security amongst everybody. Yeah. And we have been very lax with that. We have a lot of human trafficking going on through here that nobody wants to talk about, and they're kind of like, it's not here, not in Laredo. You have the Eagle Pass and Del Rio. I think one of them last night had 5,000 underneath the bridge coming across. We haven't had that here because, but what happens if it happens here? What if they could happen? What if? What's going to happen? Well, are we that prepared? It's a never-ending scenario because you want the safety for everybody and the safety for those kids that are being brought in here for that purpose.
As the constable's office, we have 4 precincts. Each area has its own set of issues. Maybe what's happening in Precinct 2 is not happening in Precinct 1. What's happening in Precinct 1 is not happening at Precinct 4. And I can tell you at Precinct 3, it's nothing like 2, 1, or 4. Precinct 3, we're strictly, I want to say 98% patrol. And it's patrolling the highways, and it's making sure that we're working with Border Patrol, we're working with DPS, and we're keeping those efforts away from the Quad City area. But it's a corridor. 359, 59, where does it lead to? It all leads to Laredo, and vice versa, so we have to be prepared. So as Constable of Precinct 4, definitely we need to have deputies out in the county, patrolling the county roads, especially protecting those landowners that are out on those properties, because guess what? When there's damage to their property, it affects us in our taxes. And we want to work with those landowners to make sure that, we can avoid damage to their property, loose cattle on the highway, because, everybody knows 75 miles an hour and there's a loose livestock. We need to respond. We need to assist. Again, the constable's office is an extension of law enforcement. We're not the end-all, be-all, but we're an extension, and we have a responsibility to serve the community, not only in Laredo, but in the outer areas as well.
What's the precinct from yours, boundaries? let's say, is it from 59 to 83, that kind of thing?
I would say from 59 to 83, but the map is kind of
Yeah.
like a puzzle piece. But if you're going through the loop, it covers from Lakeside all the way to north to the county line. So you have everything on FM 1472, FM 3338, 255.
Mines Road.
That's 1472 Mines Road. So it covers all of that area, and all the way to 35 to the county line, and 83 north to the county line. So you have all these little areas, and of course the county roads that are in between. You have all these areas that need assistance. So, and they are constituents of Precinct 4. They are citizens. So we need to provide equal patrolling. You're 8 deputies at the most. 8 deputies on a shift. You have 1 deputy that is assigned to JJP. You have another one that's court bailiff. So you have 6 deputies. So that's why I'm a firm believer that it's all hands on deck. All hands on deck, sergeants, lieutenants, captains, chiefs, and the constable out on patrol. Because we have a larger area. Precinct 4 is the largest precinct in the county, so we have a larger area to cover. So that's why I'm a firm believer that we are an extension of law enforcement. We stay in our lane. We stay in our lane and we do what we have to do, but we're prepared to respond, we're prepared to assist, because everybody knows that as in law enforcement, when officers show up on scene, you need to be prepared to assist and participate, not just be there.
And listen, we have great first responders. We have great officers when it comes into that. Everybody gets there in time. There's no quarrel on that. But every department has a lot of good officers, and also every department has a lot of bad officers.
Yes.
And what happens with the bad officers, especially here in Laredo, they play musical chairs. They do something at the constable, and then all of a sudden you have them at TAMU, and do something at TAMU, then you have them over here at the county attorney, and the county attorney, they go back to the sheriff, and they go back to PD, and they're always playing this musical chairs, and they're the ones causing the problems for the rest of law enforcement. And everybody knows about it, and nobody does anything about it. Grievances, internal affairs, it's kind of putting the fox in the hen house, and nothing's going to happen out of that. What do you think about a citizens review board, maybe a Webb County Citizens Review Board, to see the whole law enforcement, peace officers in Webb County as that?
Now, how do you mean?
Like, in other words,
Elaborate.
if you have like internal affairs, but instead of internal affairs, actually a citizen review board.
Well, Webb County does have a civilian board. It's under civil service. When there's a grievance or things like that, they do have a citizens review board. But are you talking about having it as far as hiring processes,
No,
or
no.
what are you referring to?
In like internal affairs, there's a grievance. God forbid there's a grievance on Officer B, and Officer B goes in there, and everybody says, "Oh, well, don't worry about it." It's like and that type of citizens review board, and not if somebody has a grievance, something happened. What are the steps? Because now you're talking about, you have 4 constables, you have sheriffs, you have tick writers, you have, even though they're federal or ag. You have Laredo Police Department, you have TAMU, you have Airport Police, you have LC, you have UISD. I mean, we have more police departments than China.
And an internal affairs investigation differs from a grievance. So that's why.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that differs from
No, I'm
a
not talking
grievance.
about a grievance. I'm talking about, I go over there and I report you did something wrong against the law.
Internal affairs in the department, they conduct the investigation, they take all precautionary measures, they dot their I's, cross their T's. And whatever comes of the report, it's up to the review board of the agency to decide what type of disciplinary action is going to be taken.
That's what happens with the musical chairs. And all of a sudden, they tell me, hey, you know what, we got something here. Why don't you resign and go, your buddy over here will
The
pick you up.
hiring process, again, it differs from every department. I know that at Precinct 3, the review process for hiring is very strenuous. Even to promote is very rigorous also.
At the county?
at Precinct 3, the county, I can only speak to the department that I've worked in, right? So at Precinct 3, yes, the hiring process and the promotion process was different from Precinct 4. It's completely different. At Precinct 3, you have to go through an oral board. You have to you have to do a presentation, and you even interview in front of your peers. So your peers also have an opportunity to say yay or nay. If, does this person deserve to be a supervisor? Or, that's where the deputies themselves are able to give their input on how they would want to work with the person applying for a supervisory position. So, I mean, that's phenomenal. I had never seen that, and I commend them for doing it because it was fair. It's fair.
That's pretty good, and everybody has experiences, and I tell my guys, I got a bunch of young guys, I mean, from 16 to 21, I tell everybody, get pulled over, just comply. If something happens, take care of it afterward, and file a report, something occurred, because you never know what stress level that peace officer has gone through. Maybe he just came from a crime scene that he's off, and he's off nervous, and you start arguing about issues and constitutional rights and over a stop sign that you rolled over. You know what I'm saying? Things can escalate. So just take the ticket, and if something happens, do that. And the reason I say that is, years back I was filing a 2503, which is interference with child custody, which is a state jail felony, which nobody enforces. In the whole state of Texas, nobody. But they'll pick up that single parent on Thursday night after happy hour easily 100%, than allowing them to go with the other parent. Well, anyway, so I'm there and I'm filing the report, and the officer just went off his hinges. Takes a step back, 2 steps back, and what was it done? And I called police. Nobody showed up. He left. About midnight, I had a knock on the door, and it was a young woman lieutenant. Come inside. Oh, I'm here for about this and this, and I go, now I'm gonna record if you allow me, because I'm gonna record the process because of the incident that occurred. Guy comes back, starts cussing me out, starts cussing my attorney out, and I said, I'm not gonna listen to him. I'm gonna be talking to you to control that situation. You really would love this beauty. This beauty ended up later on. He was one of the ones that he was swindling money out of his own back to blue badges on one of the forums. When you went to Internal Affairs did nothing. But yet, a couple of years later, Poetic Justice catches this guy swindling money. And from their own crew. You can't have your own people looking over the serious infractions like that and just pushing them under the rug. We need to have some kind of review board that's made out of citizens that can come in and basically say, you know what, this is what happened. Or other words, we're going to get things that get out of hand. And it's all about public safety, and I think that's one step. Definitely. Would you encourage that if that occurs?
Well, it depends on who the citizens are going to be. They also would have to go through a background check, and are they reliable? Are they
just like we pick them off, just like we pick them off in jury.
Well, jury's
understand what I'm saying?
You pick your name out of a hat.
No,
but when you're talking about a review board, you're talking about people who are going to be responsible for making an ultimate decision on someone's career, someone's life. So
same as jury.
Correct.
Jury, you can get 5 people that don't like the way you look, and all of a sudden, guess what? He's guilty, and you're not guilty. And we have a lot of people serving time that were not guilty, and it's coming out now because you had a lot of people up that didn't like the way you look.
And going back to the Webb County, going back to the Webb County Civil Service Citizens Board, they are different people, business owners, former law enforcement, former firefighters, former educators. You have to get a mix of everybody.
Sure, just like the jury, and I think I think you're on the right path, because the names can be drawn up and say, okay, for the next 90 days, Mr. Buitron, you're gonna be on this review board. If something happens, and that's your duty, and
But
guess
does
what?
this person have a criminal background? Do they
Just like
have,
jury.
do they have
If you have
any
to- just like jury.
citations?
It's exactly like a jury. You're gonna be judged by your peers.
Well, then if it's just like a jury, then why would you need a board, you know, because then you would just rely on the jury.
No,
Is that
that's
what you're saying?
That's what you're saying. It's that jury is the board, and that jury is the ones that are gonna look over, because right now, internal affairs, that is the problem. And, they're letting, and the reason is, listen, I'm good for good peace officers, I'll protect them with my life. It's the bad ones we have to get out of the street. And there's a,
Let me stop you right there. Then, as the constable of Precinct 4, it would be my responsibility to not, like I've said in the past, the right decision is not always the popular decision. So if that means that looking at someone's individual career path and their infractions, if that person needs to be let go, then that they need to be let go. They are no longer part of the agency. But that would be on the constable, and that would be my responsibility if elected. I would have to take that role, and the right decision is not always a popular decision.
absolutely.
So
You
that's
see,
what I would have to do.
and see, that's what happens. We need something like that, and like the jury, like I said, because in juries, you got 12 people that can put you in life, or even hearing death penalty, and you better have it. And lawyers lie, judges go eat with them we have a huge Cosa Nostra within our judicial system that's pretty bad. It makes the mob look bad. It makes the mob look good. These guys are bad, and you see them eating with a judge at night, talking about the case, and all of a sudden it's horrendous what you see here. We have good judges, don't get me wrong, but those elements occur. So when you have juries that all of a sudden they're lying to you blatantly, aggravated perjury by somebody, and all of a sudden the guy's there, and all of a sudden he's getting fried because you got lies, and that's a different story. So
Well,
you're relying on a jury.
But now you're talking about the judicial process. But going back to the constable's office, as far as the responsibility of the deputy constables, you know, they are there to protect and to serve. They are there to enforce the law. They are there to serve those warrants. They are there to serve those documents and to stay in our lane. You know, that
Absolutely.
is what we do. And as far as internal affairs review goes, that's up to the supervisors and the constable, the department head, you know, the elected official.
Absolutely.
And yes, going back to what you're saying, if you're talking about gypsy cops, then yes, where does the line stop? Well, it stops here.
Absolutely.
It stops
That's what we need. We need that type of attitude. And I'm not going after you, and I'm not going after police officers, don't get me wrong. The problem is that just like everything else, we have good and we have bad. And we have to discuss that. Those are topics that a lot of people don't want to discuss. Kind of like all of a sudden you say, you hate police officers. No, please stop.
Well, you know, there's a joke in law enforcement. There's a joke in law enforcement. We always say we should have been firefighters. That's what we say, because everyone loves a firefighter. I mean, and I love Webb County Fire, City Fire. They're great guys, but really nobody, the attitude towards policing has changed. You know, society has changed. You know, it's not what it was before. A constable's office was looked at as somebody who just served papers and they did nothing else. But times are changing. You know, the city's growing. You know, I met with a constable in Precinct 4 in Bexar County, and I was speaking to the lieutenant, and that was last Friday. And I was speaking to the lieutenant, and I said, "How many evictions do you all have on a daily basis?" And he said, "Papers are around 250 that they serve. Writs of possession, where they're actually taking control of the property," he goes, "I would say maybe about 50 a week." And they break them up into morning and evening because they're just overwhelmed. But he was telling me that one of the cases there, there was a clerical error on the paperwork. The landlord and the tenant were both on the same property for the writ of possession. The deputy left, and there was shots fired between the tenant and the landlord. And I looked at him and I said, and people say constable's office don't that we don't encounter any type of
No,
danger. And that's not true, because when we go and we knock on a door to serve a paper, we don't know who we're gonna encounter.
That's what I told you.
But that's where respect and good communication are key.
Absolutely.
When we're serving these papers, and we need to be prepared. So
And
that's
that-
where the tactical training, that's where everything comes in, to make sure that the deputies are prepared.
And you see, that's what we have to do. We have to have more of that type of training to start learning how to de-escalate and not to escalate something. Because once it escalates, it escalates. And everybody has the arresting power. I have the arresting power just like you have an arresting power. It's called a citizen's arrest. But here in Webb County, they frown upon that. And the problem that we have is that the only difference is you all can serve warrants and everything else. One of the things that we have constitutionally, we can arrest. If I see something, I'll arrest them if need be. And I'll call the police and I'll
Yeah.
go through the whole process if need be. The problem that we have is we have people that don't respect that. And we have to go back into the education. So I don't know whether it's in the police academies or how we're teaching them. What's black's black, what's white's white.
You invited me to Texas Appleseed,
Yeah,
and the presenter that was there, a young lady, I don't remember her name, but she spoke on something of emotional intelligence.
yes.
And that is something that, you know, we are talking about more often. And she was proposing that emotional intelligence should be taught at the high school level. And that's a great idea, because and it also needs to be reinforced in the academy. It needs to be reinforced on the job, because exactly like what you're saying. I know that I read an article that was published, and it was regarding social media and emotional intelligence. So that is definitely something that we need to talk about. And you're right, we do need to train that. But once you get training in the academy, it is the responsibility of the agency to provide that continuous training, that continuous practice of what we learned in the academy. You don't learn something, 15 years ago and then, forget about it.
8 hours of something and think you can do
Yeah.
something. It ain't gonna happen. And I keep telling people this. You are what you train, and how you train is what you are. And I tell them here, I go, if you train, for example, if you train by throwing a punch and your hands down, they're gonna hit you in the face. Your face is wide open. If you telegraph your punches, they're gonna block it and move out of the way by somebody that's a little bit more experienced than you. The same thing happens if you're a surgeon, if you start training and not taking back the mechanical essence of the training, of the technique that's there. Then you start saying, I'm going to do it this way because I think it's a lot easier. Then you get into a habit of doing those things. Then all of a sudden you're going to end up into a problem. And I think that's what we have. It's that situational awareness instead of, I'm here, you're there, and you better do what I say kind of attitude. And I think things need to change. We have to go back and have courses and re-educate that. And I'm not saying that, and you see this, let me put it to this way, and you see this in the attitudes of federal, state, county, and city. And then the little micro departments are out there. The federal officers like FBI, they're very, yes sir, no ma'am, and DPS, yes sir, no ma'am, this or this. Now you're seeing it in the county, yes sir, no. Then you see in the police officers, hey, you better get this, you know what I'm saying? So there's something that's being lost, and it has to be taught on a continuous basis. And
that's what I want to do, because as I'm the vice president of the Deputy Constables Association, an association that has never existed. I think they attempted to try to make an association. The association was created, and it is representation of all four precincts. We are with TMPA, and we work closely with TMPA on bringing trainings, free trainings, here locally for deputy constables and for any other agency that wants to join. We just had an invitation to bring something for de-escalation, for mental health crisis, So we are going to be bringing these trainings. You know, the association's only been around for 2 years. It's, you know, like everything, it starts off rocky. It starts off strong, and then, you know, you lose membership, and then, but we're going to be reopening registration for the deputy constables, because we do want to provide this training. That's what the association was created for, to make sure that not everybody gets to travel to go to these wonderful trainings. Not everybody gets to leave their post for a week at a time. But if we could bring those trainings here locally, you know, that's great. You know, that way the elected officials and the agencies can send their officers to a free training to discuss whatever needs to be talked on: emotional intelligence, de-escalation, mental health. We can bring all of those here, and it's not to step on anybody's toes, because the Laredo College does wonderful in providing trainings as well, but it doesn't meet everybody's time schedule, you know. So, and the instructors are great at Laredo College. You know, I mean, when I definitely want to support that more. Should I be elected a constable, I definitely want to support Laredo College and their efforts and offering a scholarship to somebody who's young and wants to become a member of law enforcement. You know, it's important. You know, we need to get those young minds out there and new ideas and new visions to come out into policing.
No, we need to change. I think we have to look at the old, because urban cities, urban areas, been around since the Romans, probably before, and Sumatrans, right, really. So urban areas really haven't changed. The only things that have changed are things that are technical, like electricity, ceiling fans, plumbing, and they had plumbing back then too. The Romans had beautiful plumbing, still works today. Mm-hmm. Okay, the policing was kind of a little bit the same. It's changed the same because people work the same. Of course, now technology has changed. So we have to look at things that were done in the past. I'm not saying look at what the Romans did. What I'm saying is look and see what police officers were doing in urban areas like New York, like London, like Paris. What were they doing? What were the problems they were doing? Do that type of research, and then say, okay, guess what? It's the same problems we have here. Let's start putting, how did they deal with it then? How are we doing? Because it's always there. You know, now we have the technology. We had, bullying existed all the time. Mm-hmm. Back in about 16 years ago, I don't know how long Sheriff Martin Cuellar has been in office, but when he was running for office, that's when the rapes were occurring that year. Okay, that's how I know how back, so I don't know how many years it's been. We brought in Curtis Sillowell, which is the founder of the Guardian Angels. Mm-hmm. Okay, and Curtis Sillowell was talking about how things were going to escalate, especially with cyberbullying. Nobody here heard cyberbullying now. Now there's workforce bullying. And
well, the sheriff's
you know what I'm saying?
The sheriff's department has a wonderful unit, and I believe it still is in existence for cyberbullying. I know that, if I'm not mistaken, Chief Doreen Hale was also on that unit, and other officers. So yeah,
but that occurred since then.
Yeah, and they took action, and they were proactive, and they were doing stuff, and that's what we need to be doing.
And so we got that came from Curtis over there saying this is the next problem. Everybody's kind of, what are you talking about? We had some representatives from the district attorney there. We had some county attorneys there. And we had, of course, the sheriff was there. And they were like, pues, ¿qué está pasando? You know, yeah, well, what are you talking about? So I remember he sent us and I passed it to him. And I'm glad that things have taken off because things need to be done that way.
I've been fortunate. I'm a crisis negotiator, and I'm fortunate to be a member of TON. And when I went to a training recently, Laredo Police Department did a presentation. They were phenomenal. The unit there was phenomenal. They did a great presentation. But everywhere that I was networking with, I would hear that every department or every region had a multi-agency task force for crisis negotiators. So I always thought, well, why don't we do that here? I know that we were looking forward to let's train with the Laredo Police Department, let's train with the Sheriff's Department, let's train with TAMU. We should all come together and train together. Not that we want to, we want to be a resource. We want to be able to be helpful and prepared. So that goes for any aspect of law enforcement.
Negotiating. My professor, Robert Patorel, you're talking back, he was a phenomenal police officer. He was a French officer, national police. He was also the brigadier commander of the French anti-terrorist police. That's what they did, was negotiation. Mm-hmm. And they taught it to everybody. And all the French police officers had to go through negotiation crisis. Why? Because you never know when you're in a crisis. When you're walking in a store, all of a sudden some guy pulls out a gun or knife or what have you. You have to talk your way out of it.
We'll put it more closer to home. What if you're a deputy constable and you're out patrolling or you're out conducting street traffic
somebody pulls
and
out
something happens? It's yes, you're prepared, for de-escalation, but a negotiation, a hostage negotiator, that could take hours. That could take hours, and it's mentally draining. So you have to have the resources. You have to have a team there to support you. And how many times? What if somebody's out of pocket? What if the negotiator for the sheriff's department is out of town? What if there's not a female negotiator and the person wants to speak only to a female? What if it's somebody who, there's what ifs, they can always come up. We should be prepared.
I mean, we go put up gas, and all of a sudden, bingo, you're there, and all of a sudden some guy goes in there, hey, wait, you start, what are you going to do? There's a difference. There's a difference between distance of taking action and you're already in the problem to cool everything down. And, I can't I tell people this. If you cannot punch somebody in the face, you're not going to be able to pull out a gun on somebody. So if you don't have that training to be able to train and defend yourself against somebody else, in that sense, I'm not talking about going out and fighting, but if you don't have that training, I guarantee you're not going to pull a gun. Unless you're under the influence of something else that's controlling your mindset, that you're going to go in there. And sometimes you got a lot of people that you never know what's corner store, pharmacy they're taking, and they can go in that direction.
Well, again, going back to training. So if you're a deputy constable and you go and qualify once a year with your firearm as required by TCO, that's great. But why are we not
What's
preparing?
the budget, more or less?
Well, it depends. It depends because each department, the elected official can say we're going to qualify 1 year, we're going to qualify twice a year, we're going to qualify quarterly. It depends on what the elected official wants to use. Once the elected official gets their budget, it's their discretion to use as they wish, but again, looking at the budget, reassessing, reevaluating what is the priority, what is the need. Is there a need for the deputies to qualify multiple times a year? Is there a need for them to go quarterly? Is there a need for them to attend trainings? And if not, and if we don't have the money, how do we get it free trainings to come to them? The Deputy Constables Association would be key in that and helping. And the Deputy Constables Association working with other associations bringing the necessary training. So that would be something, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if it can happen.
And it would?
If it can happen, and if it can be changed and those things go in there and change. See, what happens with a lot of people, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying a lot of candidates, they have beautiful ideas, and all of a sudden they go up there and they say, well, guess what? You're only getting 50,000, so you better do whatever you want with 50,000. But our budget is 250,000, but you're only getting 50,000, and you better do whatever you want with 50,000. And you start realizing that there's other powers at stake. And those other powers at stake are the ones that realize what budgets are. And then they have other powers at stake that they have, we don't want that direction.
Well, I think the priority should be, well, if it's 50,000, then public safety needs to.
Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying. And I just threw out that number. And just to get this going, because the ideas that you have are great.
Well,
but what happens is, once you get there, are they going to flow with everybody else who's up there? And that's
well, if
the
it's
difference.
free, it shouldn't affect anybody's budget, so it should flow.
If it's free.
And there are free trainings. There are free trainings. It's just, are they available? Deputy constables are patrolling. They're serving papers. They're at presentations. They're 580, they're conducting school traffic. So they're committed, and those commitments with Precinct 4 are going to remain because it's a commitment to the community. But as the elected official, it would be my responsibility to say, okay, where do we best put in these trainings? Where is it a weekend training? Is it an after hours training? But get the training because it's not an excuse. There's no excuse.
Absolutely, there's no excuse in training, and you better be.
That's right.
Because you're the one up there, and if you're going to be going and you never know what you're going to get into, you better have the training, or else.
And I think it's as a constable, it is your responsibility if you're not just having the deputies work, you are training future leaders. That's what your job is, to train future leaders, to make sure that they're prepared, that they have the training, that they one day move on and become supervisors somewhere else, greener pastures. Unfortunately, the deputy constables, the constables' offices are stepping stones because deputies move on to a higher pay, to state offices, to the municipality where there's higher pay. So it's usually a stepping stone. And that's okay. As long as when they're here, they're trained, they're prepared, they're professional, they're ethical, and they take that on to another agency.
Absolutely.
Good for them. But it's the job of the constable, the job of the supervisors to set the example. And that's what it's about.
Absolutely. Now, let's talk about your campaign. It's already started. When's early voting?
Early voting is February 20th through March 1st with Election Day on March 5th.
If people want to get a hold of you, where can they go?
They can call me to my number. I'll leave a card here for you so that you can post it. I have an email. There's also my campaign page on Facebook. I'm getting a lot of good feedback. I'm reconnecting with the community that I so dearly love and I served for 8 years. I'm reconnecting with them and I'm meeting new faces and I'm hearing their concerns, and I get a response of, oh yes, you were here in the community, I remember you, I remember what you did, and so that's good. I want to be able to continue with that for them.
And don't get me wrong, we just need to protect everybody, and the main thing is protect the good people.
Of course.
And good badges we have to protect.
Definitely.
And even if we have to change legislation, we have to protect the good ones, because it was told to me, and it was something. It goes, there's no actual stats, and they go, but these were peace officers. But it's about 30% of good officers are in every department. And it goes, then you have 15% that are very, very bad officers in every department. And I go, what happened to the other percent? Those are called complacent officers. Mm. They don't want to do, they don't want to see, they want to play the I don't see, the three little monkeys. Mm-hmm. I didn't hear, I didn't see, I didn't do, so, and goes, and those are just as bad. So if we start protecting the good, that go after officers that did some bad infraction, and protect them for them not to be afraid of speaking up and standing up, then we'll have a lot better departments. And I kind of looked at them and I said,
you know what I think is a plus for me, to be very honest? I've worked alongside those deputies in Precinct 4. I've been there with them.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that there's bad apples in Precinct 4. No. I'm just saying there's in that that's what it was saying, and I know that. But in
Precinct 4, I can tell you that the deputies
they're good guys.
They're great guys. And mm-hmm. I know where their strong points are. I know where some of them will shine and excel, and I know where some of them need some work. And I would love to work with them and make sure that they reach their highest potential, because it's about empowerment. And empowerment doesn't mean putting somebody in control. It means about encouraging them to do their best. And that's what it's about.
And that's what you need. It's kind of it's like here. I want my students to be capable of defending themselves this way and this way if need be.
Yeah.
And for them to also show respect and to move out there and love their community. And so you have to build that network, and it takes time to build. And you have a lot of people that just want to, guess what, I want to go out there and punch somebody in the face. Well, then go do it somewhere else. It's not going to happen here.
Because you're teaching respect.
You understand what I'm saying? And it's not going to happen here. You want to fight in the ring? I'm going to teach you the beginnings of the ring. Why? Because once you step in there and the bell rings and you're not prepared, something's going to happen to you. And also like what is known as reputation. Your reputation carries you for always everywhere. It's number one. If I teach somebody and they go get their butt whipped in the street, they're going to say, oh, Professor Buitron doesn't know how to teach anything else.
Yeah.
If I take somebody up in the ring and he wins, I've learned that they learned it through osmosis when they were in their mother's belly. And they became a world champion. They don't care about the coach. But if they lose, it's my fault. Understand what I'm saying?
Well, as,
The kid was a natural. His mom, when he was in tirando patadas, you're like, okay.
well, as a constable,
You know what
then,
I'm saying? So you
as-
have to be that, you
as
have to
the-
have that thing in there that the negatives and the bad, you have to understand when going there, and you have to go in there with positivity
That's
and
right.
have a clear conscience of what's going on there. But you cannot have negative elements inside. We all have them. And we have to understand that how we're going to take care of that negativity that's there.
And as constable, that would be my responsibility to make sure that it is a professional work environment, that every deputy is treated with respect, that they're given the opportunity to grow, that they're given the opportunity to be the best officer that they can be, because anybody who puts on a uniform every day and a badge and goes out and chooses to serve and protect their community, they deserve that respect. They deserve
Sure.
that respect, and as the constable, that is what I need to give them,
Sure,
respect.
and and unfortunately, that respect carries a lot of departments throughout, and there's some departments that don't have that respect because they've brought it upon themselves, and it's different from having a police department to having an elected official govern a department, a place. You're
we
a
all wear
constable of a
badge.
place. Mm.
We all wear a badge,
And,
and we all
and,
serve and protect the same community.
And you have, Laredo Police Department is not the same as the Sheriff's Department. And it's not the same as a Constable's Department. It's not the same as DPS. Every department, every place has its own identity of respect.
Yes.
And
this is true.
that is true, and that's what I'm getting at. And of course, everybody wears a badge and everybody protects it. But what I'm talking about is when you have that, you have to maintain that respect because now, let's say you get elected and you get sworn in. That respect is going to be on you. An officer does something bad, it's you. It's not the officer, it's you.
me. That's right.
And so that's what occurs. So you have to have that force that you mess up, you're going to get the axe. And you have to be understanding that has to happen. You do something wrong, I'm going to axe you, period. And you can't have that attitude of all the badges are the same, we all the same. No, because you're not. And you can't have that attitude as we're all the same, no, you cannot. Because if we have
We all
that,
have the same responsibility. We all have the same duties.
we all have the same responsibility.
We all have the same responsibilities. We all have the same duties.
But what I'm getting at is that element, when you get into that frame of
that
thought,
gray area, like, yes.
it's each department, it's its own individuality, and each
Yeah.
department has its own
And
respect.
it's my responsibility, if elected, to change the mindset of what the Constable's Office of Precinct 4 is. Because it's not just community policing, it's also enforcing. It's also being out there to protect and to serve. Yes, we're gonna stay in our lane, and we're gonna do what we have to do, what is our main priority, but we're gonna be prepared. And we're gonna be there to assist and be an extension of law enforcement as it should be. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity of being in that seat.
Well, best of luck to you and everybody else, because number one, it's a hard place to be at.
Yes, it sure is.
And I'm not here going after you or anything, and don't take it that way. It's just
Of
that
course not.
there's things that I've seen that if we can bring to light, people can say, wait a minute, there is something wrong. Let's look at that.
And it's working with
you-
people like you that we bring them
You
together.
have to understand that it's when you say, no, nothing's happening, you close a blind eye and it continues happening. That's where we're in the problems that we have. Because if people close a blind eye and, oh, no, that's not happening, let me be the good Christian, let me turn the other cheek. Turn around and look at the other way.
We can't
No.
promise to fix everything, but we can promise to try, we can promise to make our
Absolutely.
best effort. And
Absolutely.
because making false promises would get nobody anywhere. But definitely it's an effort in trying and reaching out to community members like yourself, and to any other community member who has a concern. Let's look at it. Let's evaluate it. Let's see what we can do to make a difference.
And the reason I say this is because I get a lot of people that come, and I don't know, like number one, I'm nobody. I'll teach you some other things, and they come, and maybe because of this platform that we're in, and they say, you know what, this occurred over here, this is happening, how can we get it? They don't want to pay attention to us. Well, you kind of send it in certain areas, and you start getting that same, how can I say, you start getting those same complaints by the same departments. You're like, 2 hours, nobody's paying attention? You know what I'm saying? And when you tell certain people, they go, no, we're all the same. No, you're not the same. We have to get some involvement inside. And one of them is following up with sexual threats. One of them is sexual predators that are out there. We have plenty of them here in Laredo. And unfortunately, that's what happens.
Well,
and the faith of the community is not that bright with certain departments that we have here. So we have to bring the community back into having faith into the people that want to protect us. There's a lot of people, oh yeah, they're great, blah, blah, blah. Well, wait a minute, but then you have 100 people claiming the same thing. There's something wrong. Understand what I'm saying? So we have to pay attention.
Definitely, and hopefully if given the opportunity to be in that constable seat of Precinct 4, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the concerns, making a difference, and just improving the quality of life.
Absolutely. I want to thank you once more.
Thank you very much.
And folks out there, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. It's nothing going after anything. There's just some problems that have been around, and they continue to roll. It's like a snowball effect. They're going down the hill, and nobody seems to stop it. Nobody wants to make the snowman either. So, we'll leave you with this. Christmas is coming around. If we don't see you, you all be safe and stay safe. And remember, be cordial. Remember, positivity wins.
Happy holidays.
Bye-bye.
One of the reasons I joined Putron Academy here and enrolled my son is the legitimacy of the school.
No tenemos palabras maravillosas, sinceramente no tenemos ninguna palabra negativa, estamos totalmente agradecidos. Lo único que yo podría decir como madre es que se animen completamente a venir a traer a sus hijos aquí a la academia. Totalmente, es una experiencia muy bonita.
Overall, the academy is I've had a great experience with it, and I would encourage anyone who would want to become a better version of themselves to join.